You and I both know that the feeling of being deceived and taken advantage of in love is truly heartbreaking. It's like a lingering wound, making you lose faith in yourself and even in later relationships. If you're stuck in this loop, constantly encountering women who treat you badly, then trust me, you're not alone. The harsh truth is they showed you their true colors from the very beginning. It could be clumsy lies, subtle disrespect, or disregard for your feelings. But caught up in the initial emotions, you inadvertently ignored those red flags. Join me in exploring the world of psychological manipulation to understand how it creeps into relationships and how we can use Stoic wisdom to protect ourselves. I will share real-life stories, interesting reverse psychology tips, and profound lessons from my own experiences. If you are ready to change, ready to regain control of your life and your love, subscribe to the channel now. This journey will not be easy, but I believe that with the accompaniment of Stoic philosophy, you will find true happiness. Number 1. Become a man of status. You and I, we all crave love. Crave to be cherished and admired by the woman we love. But why do many of us feel that we lack status in our own relationships? Why do we let power slip into the hands of the woman we want to conquer? The answer sometimes comes from our own misguided efforts. Have you ever belittled yourself, sacrificed your values just to get a little affection, a little approval from her? That is the fatal mistake that many men make, giving up their position to be loved. Like a peacock spreading its tail to attract a mate, we try to please her at all costs, including losing ourselves. But you know what? Trying to be who she wants makes you less attractive in her eyes. Women, they are instinctively attracted to men of status, of inner strength, not those who are always trying to please them. The philosopher Seneca once said, "All endurance stems from not seeing the nature of things clearly." In this case, the nature of the matter is, the more you try to hold on, the easier it is to lose. So, instead of trying to change yourself to be loved, focus on developing inner strength, building your own confidence and bravery. Be an independent man, with your own opinions and knowing what you want. Don't get me wrong, status here does not mean wealth or power. Status comes from within, from the stability of the soul, from the ability to control emotions and independent thinking. And that's when Stoic philosophy illuminates the way for you. It will help you train your mind, face the challenges in life and love in a calm and wise way. You will learn to accept things you cannot change, focus on what you can control, and find peace in your soul. Remember, the key to conquering a woman's heart lies not in weakness or pleading, but in the inner strength and confidence that radiates from you. Number 2, manage emotions. Emotional management is an important skill, not only in romantic relationships, but also in all areas of life. But there's one thing few people notice. Emotions are not your enemy. In fact, emotions are what help us experience life fully and deeply. However, problems arise when we let emotions control our behavior. Imagine you are a sailor, and emotions are waves. If you let the waves lead you, you will be swept away uncontrollably. But if you understand the waves, know how to control the ship, you can take advantage of the waves to reach your destination. A study by the University of California found that people with good emotional management skills tend to have less stress and higher levels of satisfaction in relationships. This shows that managing emotions not only helps you avoid being controlled by others, but also improves your quality of life. In some relationships, you may encounter subtle manipulative tactics, such as gaslighting, emotional manipulation that makes you doubt yourself, or using praise as a tool to make you feel dependent. For example, when the other person uses guilt or makes you feel like you're not good enough, they're trying to control your behavior through emotions. Understanding these tactics and recognizing them is the first step to not getting stuck. One way to manage emotions is to apply the 10-second rule. When you feel like you are reacting strongly to a behavior or word, stop and count to 10 before responding. This is the time to help you temporarily disconnect from emotions and think more rationally. Studies have also shown that this simple action can significantly reduce stress levels and help you control the situation better. Besides, building self-awareness is also an essential factor. Take the time to observe and understand your own emotions. You can journal or practice meditation to get a clearer view of your mind. A person who is able to recognize emotions will not be easily manipulated by others because they know their limits and are not easily caught up in the emotional spiral that the other person intentionally creates. Managing emotions doesn't mean extinguishing them, it means knowing when to express them and when to hold back. This not only helps you maintain your bravery in the relationship, but also makes you stronger and more attractive in the eyes of others. When you are able to control your emotions, you will not easily fall prey to manipulators, and you will become the one in control of your own path. Number 3, setting boundaries for the relationship. Boundaries in relationships are not only a way for you to protect yourself from getting hurt, but also a decisive factor in maintaining balance and health in love. Many people often do not know the importance of personal boundaries, leading to being overwhelmed and losing themselves. But why are boundaries so important, and how should we set them? One aspect that is rarely mentioned is that boundaries really help define who you are in a relationship. If you don't know your limits, you will easily become the version that the other person wants, rather than yourself. Boundaries help you assert your worth, not letting others violate your personal pride. In psychology, personal boundaries are a form of self-protection mechanism, helping us to maintain our values and self-esteem. A study from the Harvard Institute of Psychology has shown that people who are able to set clear boundaries often have higher levels of happiness and less stress from toxic relationships. A real-life example to understand setting boundaries is the story of a young man who always gave in to every request from his girlfriend. He often canceled his own plans to meet her needs and gradually felt he had no personal space left. Realizing that he was losing his freedom and identity, he decided to set clear boundaries. He made it clear what he wouldn't accept and the time he needed to spend for himself. As a result, his relationship became healthier, he felt more respected, and his girlfriend also began to appreciate his time and space more. A counterargument might be that setting boundaries can make the other person feel like you are creating distance or lacking in care. However, the reality proves that setting boundaries is not a way to push the other person away, but to build a foundation of trust and mutual respect. When two people understand each other's limits, they will easily respect and understand each other more, from which the relationship will become more sustainable and happier. Setting boundaries also needs to go hand in hand with patience and open communication. You need to share why that boundary is important to you and how it helps you maintain a positive emotional and mental state. When both sides understand and agree with the limit set, manipulation will have little chance of existing. This is the key to building a respectful, equal relationship and not falling into the spiral of control. Number 4, serious mistakes men often make. In any relationship, rewarding disrespectful behavior is one of the most serious mistakes many people make. It's like you're green-lighting others to continue their wrongdoing. This story is not limited to romantic relationships, but also appears in friendships, family, and work. Imagine a typical example. You are in a relationship where your lover regularly disrespects your opinion, even acts offensively or contemptuously. Instead of confronting the problem, you choose to make amends, give gifts, or beg for forgiveness to make things go smoothly. Gradually, the other person will think that their behavior is acceptable and does not need to change. Instead of correcting mistakes, they will continue to cross your boundaries because they know you will always reward them by giving in. Psychology has shown that reinforcement is one of the key factors in shaping behavior. When you reinforce bad behavior by giving in or making amends, you are inadvertently turning that behavior into a hard-to-change habit. This is called positive reinforcement, in this case, reinforcing negative behavior. A psychological study from Stanford University showed that people in unhealthy relationships tend to react by giving in because they are afraid of losing the other person's affection or simply want to avoid conflict. However, the results of the study also showed that this reaction made the relationship worse because the other person gradually no longer felt the need to respect and care about the other person's feelings. So how can you not reward disrespectful behavior? First, you need to learn to say no. Saying no doesn't mean you don't love or care about the other person. It simply means you're protecting yourself. When you refuse to accept disrespectful behavior, you are sending a strong message that you do not accept being treated badly. This not only helps you maintain your self-respect, but also encourages the other person to change if they want to maintain the relationship. Second, establish and maintain your boundaries. Boundaries are not a dividing wall, but a safeguard, helping both parties understand what is acceptable and what is not. A person without clear boundaries will be easily exploited and manipulated. The other person will know that they can push further and not face any resistance. Conversely, if you set boundaries and firmly defend them, the other person will understand that you have your own principles and they need to respect that. Finally, remember that rewarding disrespectful behavior not only affects you, but also affects the relationship. A healthy relationship must be based on mutual respect, and no one has the right to override or insult another. If you want to build a lasting and happy relationship, start by loving and respecting yourself. This will lay the foundation for an equal relationship where both parties are respected and valued. A real-life story that you can imagine is the story of John, a friend of mine. John always felt that he had to do everything to keep the relationship with his girlfriend. She often complained and criticized John for very small things, and every time there was an argument, John was the one who apologized, even though sometimes he did nothing wrong. One day, after attending a counseling session, John realized that he was inadvertently encouraging his girlfriend to continue those disrespectful behaviors. He decided to change, set clear boundaries, and not accept being looked down upon. At first, she was very surprised, even angry, but after a while, she started to respect more, and their relationship had positive changes. Changing how you react to disrespectful behavior is not easy. It requires patience, self-respect, and the determination to protect your values. But only when you dare to confront and reject unacceptable behaviors can you build a healthy relationship and find true happiness. Number 5, influence from childhood experiences. One of the factors that is rarely mentioned but has a strong impact on how easily we are manipulated in relationships is childhood experiences. These experiences not only affect personality, but also how we build and maintain relationships in the future. To better understand this issue, we need to look at it from the perspective of psychology and recent scientific research. From childhood, each person goes through important developmental stages where love and care from adults play an essential role in shaping the so-called love mold. Children who grow up in an unstable family environment, lack of understanding, or conditional love will often form false beliefs about themselves and relationships. For example, when a child only receives attention when it pleases others, that child tends to develop into an adult who always tries to please others, not daring to set clear boundaries for fear of losing love. A study by psychologist Mary Ainsworth on attachment theory has shown that people with insecure attachment styles, often stemming from instability in childhood, tend to be vulnerable to dependence on relationships and have difficulty setting boundaries. They can be easily influenced by manipulation from the other party because they are always looking for approval and security from others. These people often feel insecure, easily confused when there are signs that the other person is distant, and often try their best to keep the relationship from falling apart, even if it means that they have to trade their values. To change this, first of all, we need to recognize and understand the effects of the past. Looking back at childhood experiences is not to blame, but to understand why we behave that way in current relationships. Only when you understand the root of the problem can you gradually change it. A typical example is the case of John, a man who grew up in a family where parents often conflicted and did not show affection for their children. As an adult, John often felt inadequate and always tried to please his girlfriend to avoid rejection. His relationship became dependent and he was unhappy. It wasn't until John decided to seek help from a therapist that he began to understand how childhood experiences affected his behavior. He learns to build self-esteem, set clear boundaries, and no longer feels like he has to trade everything for love. In addition to identifying the problem, practicing self-awareness and self-esteem is also very important. A person with high self-esteem will not easily allow others to control and also does not need confirmation from others to feel enough. They understand their worth and are not afraid to set boundaries in relationships. Another aspect to mention is practicing emotional independence. Instead of depending on the other person's emotions, learn to find joy and happiness from your own life. Participating in your favorite activities, developing personal interests, and building other positive relationships are also ways to reduce your dependence on a single person. In short, childhood experiences can play an important role in shaping how we perceive and deal with relationships. Identifying these influences, understanding yourself, and practicing self-esteem, emotional independence, will help you not only avoid being manipulated, but also build healthier and more sustainable relationships. Remember, true love is not where you have to try to change yourself to be accepted, but where you are loved for who you are. Number 6. Breaking toxic patterns. Breaking toxic patterns is not just a personal journey, it's a revolution to change your own life. Toxic patterns don't appear suddenly, but often form from habits and behaviors you learned as a child or from the influence of those around you. Breaking them requires deep self-awareness and a determination to change. Toxic patterns often start with small behaviors but have a big impact on how we behave and feel about relationships. A prime example is that you easily accept disrespectful behavior, such as the other person disregarding your opinion or ignoring your feelings. According to research from the Institute for Relationship Psychology, people with low self-esteem are often the target of manipulators because they don't dare to set boundaries and are afraid of conflict. This stems from a fear of rejection and a sense of worthlessness. A real-life story illustrating this is the story of Min, a man who once shared that he always accepted every request from his girlfriend, from changing personal plans to spending money to make her happy. Min realized that he was caught in a spiral of acceptance and concession, leading to the loss of self-worth and always living in anxiety. Breaking toxic patterns requires honesty with yourself. You need to confront why you accept unacceptable behavior. Often this stems from childhood hurts or previous experiences that made you feel that your worth depends on the acceptance of others. Research by Dr. Brené Brown, an expert on courage and vulnerability, shows that fear of hurt and rejection can make us more comfortable with disrespectful behavior from others. For example, if you grew up in a family where your opinions were often ignored or you had to please others to be loved, that can affect how you treat your partner later in life. You need to identify these memories and patterns in order to begin the process of change. Change doesn't have to come from big steps. It starts with small, continuous actions. You can start by learning to say no. Challenge yourself by setting clear boundaries and protecting them. For example, when the other person behaves beyond your limits, express your feelings calmly but firmly. This is a way for you to practice self-protection and build self-esteem. Another example is to gradually change the way you react to manipulation. Instead of giving in and feeling insecure, calmly analyze the situation and ask yourself, is this really necessary or just a way for the other person to control me? Such questions help you become more aware of what is going on and thereby not get caught up in other people's power games. Breaking toxic patterns is not a journey you have to take alone. Seek support from people you trust or from a mental health professional. Outside support helps you gain a more objective perspective on what's going on and have more motivation to continue your journey of change. A study by the American Psychological Association found that people who participate in counseling sessions are better able to maintain and break bad habits than those who try to do it themselves. Remember that the change process is not always smooth and you can make mistakes. Don't beat yourself up when you can't break the pattern right away. Instead, acknowledge your progress and practice self-compassion. Change takes time and effort, and the fact that you are trying is a huge success. Breaking toxic patterns is a challenging but worthwhile journey. It requires you to confront yourself, identify past hurts, and change every little behavior. By identifying and changing these patterns, you will not only protect yourself from manipulation, but also create healthy and respectful relationships. Remember, you deserve true and unconditional love, and to get that, first love and respect yourself.